Hi there. Long time no see. I know it's been several days since I did a reading, and I wanted to come on today. I'm hopefully going to try to do two, but we'll just see how it goes because there's always a little bit of challenges trying to do a reading in here. It's a tight space. I have a lot of setup to do to get it kind of the best I can get it for the space in here, and I'm always kind of trying to tweak that and improve on the setting here. But what I had in mind for today is a shadow reading, and I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit in how I normally lay it out. Today is also my late father's birthday. He was an Aquarius. He raised me as a single dad, and he had a lot of challenges as a parent. He struggled to raise a daughter, but he also did a lot of really wonderful things in raising me. One of the biggest gifts he gave me was my mom died when I was an infant, and that was a loss that if anyone out there has lost a parent in childhood, you know the gravity of what that is. It can be one of the, I think it's the most one of the highest ranking in terms of the ACEs. ACEs are adverse childhood events that can shape us into our adulthood, and loss of a parent is one of the top. So it's hard to capture in words how difficult it is, but there are millions of us out there that lost a parent in childhood that know. And one of the biggest gifts that my dad gave me was the time that she passed was a time when very little was understood about grief, and so there was a pretty serious lack of understanding in the grieving process from a psychological perspective. And the prevailing thought was, oh, it takes about 6 months to grieve a loss. And to my dad's credit, he understood beyond that it was going to be a far more significant loss for me than just a 6-month grieving period. And he allowed me to grieve, even as like a young adult, even as a teenager, even as a middle schooler, and of course as an elementary school age child. I went through a lot of grief without a mother, and he always allowed me to cry, and he always honored my feelings about having lost my mom, even if to him it might have been worrisome at times, like, geez, this is 10 years in and my daughter's still sobbing into the couch, like, what is, so there was a lot of, he just followed his intuition. My dad was very intuitive, but he didn't honor that part of himself at all. I think partly because that's not valued in men, and he was an Aquarius, so his main set of values were in his logic and wisdom, right, and the scientific method and stuff like that. But he was also kind of he could be quite a shady character, like in terms of ethical behavior. So there were some things that we inherited, behaviors from our dad that weren't so great as well. So I just want to honor his memory today and the complete picture of who he was. He was a complex person. He had a lot of really amazing qualities, and I would not for sure be who I am without him. I mean, I was very much grew up loving and adoring my dad, and we had a very close relationship. So rest in peace, Ronald Bruce Vogel. So today is just going to be a shadow reading. And I wanted to kind of frame it not so much just in the context of your shadow self, but there's a concept, another reader brought up I think she said it was a Cherokee allegory or illustration about people, which is that we both have a dark wolf and a light wolf within us, and whichever one you feed is the one that you will become the most aligned with, right? There's a similar belief system in Greek kind of philosophical history called your dark horse and your light horse. And it's encapsulated in the Chariot card, right? So whichever horse you pay the most attention to within you is going to be the one that becomes the strongest. And your dark horse would represent your shadow, right? And the light horse, the sort of healed ego, for example, right? So this is going to be the context, the light horse and the dark horse, that I'm going to utilize to set the context for this reading. And we'll just get messages from both our light horse and our dark horse on how to unify them. I think that might have been a Platonic concept, the light and dark horse. If anyone knows, let me know. I'm curious. It might go back beyond farther than the Greeks. I mean, there's the whole understanding now that a lot of Greek mythology has roots in Afro-Asiatic belief systems, right? So let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of going off at the mouth at this point, and I want to just get into the reading. So thank you for being here. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for commenting and sharing. Appreciate it. What can we know about our light and dark horse at this time? What are messages from our light and dark horse, or our light and dark wolf within us? What are our messages? The idea being we don't want to reject our dark side. We want to try to listen to it and understand it and integrate it within ourselves. Which is a little bit now departing from the original theme into more of a Jungian psychological, how to integrate. Because we all have both a light and dark side, and people really get into trouble when they refuse to look at their dark side or refuse to acknowledge it, because that side of you tends to grow and get louder and louder the more you try to ignore it, right? It doesn't want to be ignored. It's a part of us that needs our love and integration and attention as well. Light and dark horse, please. Oh, and then helpful for us to know. What are the messages from our shadow, and how can we integrate the two today? Interesting. So you might notice, if you're a card reader, that I'm writing these cards. That's because I typically don't read reversal cards. It's not because I'm trying to change the message of the reading. I often, when I'm doing a more comprehensive tarot layout, I don't feel you need to read things in the reverse. I think that the deck is complex enough that you can get your messages without having to try to also look at something overall. I can read reversals. I just often think they're unnecessary. So let's take a look here. This column here represents our light horse and our dark horse, and then how to integrate the two. So on the light side of you, in your conscious mind, you're really embodying Empress energy. So you're really consciously wishing, and your motives are to attract wealth, abundance, prosperity, fertility. The Empress is an incredibly fertile, abundant. It really captures the essence of the feminine polarity, meaning literal femininity in terms of like how we present in the world, but really on a much deeper level, it's about energy polarities. So feminine energy being receptive, passive, and I don't say passive in a negative way. It just means the opposite of active, right? So receptive, abundant, everything comes to you. You don't go out and chase anything. And in your mind, you're really attempting to embody this idea in order to move your life forward. The Colette Baron Reed card associated with our light side is Come to the Edge, and I'll read that in a minute. But it's encouraging you to embrace your courage and your willingness to take your life to the edge of your comfort zone, right? To the edge of where you're in a growth state versus a state of non-action or darkness. this would be like a conscious decision to continue to grow, perhaps. But we'll read her language too, because I value her descriptions of her cards. And then what's going on in your heart? So in your mind, you're really trying to attract abundance, attract fertility. It can be a very sensuous card, right? And a very sexual card in terms of the feminine pole. And then in your heart center is the world. So this is very in alignment. Like, you've been really doing some incredible work from your conscious self. You've been actively and consciously trying to grow, trying to heal, trying to evolve, trying to generate newness, trying to continue unfolding in your life in a way that feels very healthy. So you're consciously in a very kind of healed state. This reflects someone to me who's already done a lot of work. You're not somebody who's unconscious of your shadow, right? You're someone who is aware of the complexity and fullness of your experience. And I just want to read her Come to the Edge statement real quick, just to get, while we're going on our deep dive into the light pole. It's card number 36. Come to the Edge. And we're going to see what it says here. And we might revisit it again if love or some other themes come out here that are specific. But the general idea is facing the unknown is the only choice you really have right now if you want to progress. It's okay to be afraid. Now is the time to take a risk that is not calculated, to feel the exhilaration as you ready yourself for a leap of faith. Spirit is present, so let go of fear. You are called to express your true self. Listen to your heart and soul, not your head. Come to the edge and discover that you can fly. You must step into the unfamiliar so that you may find your miracles. Very beautiful, and it's in keeping with what I said. You're aware that coming to the edge is where your highest growth is, and that courage is rewarded, especially courage that comes from this heart-centered place, right? A place that's willing to look at their shadow side. And your shadow needs attention. It's speaking pretty loudly right now. It's feeling stuck. Your shadow is sending you messages of feeling stuck and in gratitude. So that can potentially, this is where it's important to understand and integrate your shadow. And I'm just going to do this right now as not a card reader, but as a therapist. So a card like Come to the Edge is calling you to live at the edge of your comfort zone, to have courage to go beyond where you feel comfortable and to experience the exhilaration. If you don't integrate a sensation like this of ingratitude and feeling stuck, this can turn into, instead of healthy pursuit of the edge, unhealthy pursuit. If you're not comfortable with this side of you, it goes into, like, rather than living on the edge in a way that inspires growth, it's living on the edge that could potentially kill you, right? Like ignoring the fact that there's this kind of negative quality to something going on another level with you, right? So by acknowledging this, it can help you stay in the healthy version of this. That's just one example that I want to make sure I'm illustrating about what shadow work can look like, even outside of a spiritual pursuit, right? Just a psychological pursuit alone. So your shadow in your mind is feeling ungrateful at times and feeling stuck and having trouble seeing the cup that's being handed to you. It's the Ace of Cups that's up here hovering around you, but your shadow side is not seeing it or feeling like it's not for you or rejecting it, that it's not exciting enough or whatever it is. There's something in your shadow's psyche that's feeling ungrateful and that's feeling a little bit petulant, right? And then in the heart of your shadow side is a conflict. It's the Five of Swords. And so this is probably why the mind of your shadow self is feeling this ingratitude and petulant, stuck energy, is because there's a war energy in your shadow side's heart center. It's a card of conflict and battle. So something in your heart is conflicted. In spite of the fact that you're doing this really amazing work, I hope this reading reaches you because it's helping you attend to what are these issues. And we can get some clarity on it. What is the conflict that you're feeling in your heart? We're also going to look at the Colette Baron Reid card here, which is Co-Create. It's number 40. It's got these beautiful, it's got a cheetah on it, sitting on like some Roman, we just had Lupercalia, and there's kind of this Roman column here that reminds me of some of the images of Lupercalia that are found on relief relief carvings, Roman relief carvings. So we've got a cheetah and an owl, and the card is co-create. It's card number 40. This is the card representing your shadow side as well. So this is going to be encouraging you to include your shadow. Wake up to your shadow right now and include your shadow in this process. It's needing your attention. It wants to co-create with you. Or this is maybe a healthy way to integrate it. Let's see what it says here. You may not consider yourself a creative person, but in fact, you are creating your reality every moment of every day via your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, intentions, and actions. Yet you must consider that you do so in partnership with spirit, consciousness, God, or whatever name you call your higher power. You are a spark of this intelligence that works through you, nudging you with inspired thought and intuitive guidance. You are a paintbrush that co-creates a beautiful, unique expression of your own individually blended and universal spirit. You are a product of divine inspiration, and now you're aligned with it to co-create miracles. When you view your life as art and know you co-create it, only beauty and grace result. Prepare to be amazed. That is beautiful. And one of a card reader that I follow and I really enjoy her work, she sends out messages each morning for the day, and she always greets us with, "Hi, co-creators," and I love that. It reminds me of this right here. So your shadow wants to be a part of this process. It doesn't want to be relegated to the shadow. It wants to be included, and it's maybe feeling a bit neglected by you, which is why you're being reminded to include this work, because it includes the complexity of your life. To include and integrate your shadow creates the full picture of who you are as a soul, as a creative force in the world. So it's really great and beautiful guidance so far. So, excuse me. Integrating these two parts of you. At the very base or root of the integration is the Page of Cups. So that's to me, this speaks to two different things, or two different themes in tarot, which is inner child, and which is also gentle movement towards making an offer, right? Or towards expressing love. It's an early stage of that. It's a young energy. You're being asked to embrace this Page of Cups energy. And to me, this means your inner child. So some of this shadow side might be some unhealed parts of your inner child. When I kept saying petulant, that's a word I tend to associate with children. Are often called petulant, which is not really fair. Children are trying to learn about their power in the world and to be able to exercise power when they can. And it's very intense as a child to feel powerless when things are happening that have painful or abusive or traumatic consequences, right? So it's a little bit judgmental and kind of cruel to call children petulant who are acting out, but that's what we do a lot. We don't allow children to have their full expression of emotion because it's often inconvenient for us. My dad, again, to use my dad as an example and to integrate my own shadow here, because he was so obsessed with reason and logic, and that's right from Greek philosophy. That's what Western culture celebrates, is an imbalance of feminine and masculine. I am a very sensitive person, and I cry easily, and I always have been. That's how I was born temperamentally, which is not something that's in my control. Our temperament like that is something that's inherited. It's not a trait that we develop over time. It's part of how our nervous system is made up. And my temperament is emotional. I have an emotional and sensitive temperament. I'm highly sensitive, and my dad did not think that was good for me. He thought it was going to cause me problems in life. So when I had big emotional reactions to things that weren't my mom's death, for example, he really would get after me. You need to get a thicker skin. You need to toughen up. And he thought he was helping me. But really it made my part of me that just needed to cry and experience my hurt feel ashamed. And so this could be something like that. Like you are really being encouraged to go within and nurture this conflicted, petulant, wounded feeling within you that's coming from maybe a deeper place from childhood. Tune into it, pay attention to it, and take good care of it. Don't reject it or try to push it away as something about yourself that you don't like. This could be something like, as an adult, assessing yourself as clingy or too needy or too, without kind of reframing it as like, well, where did that come from? If I'm a person who is vulnerable to try to clinging to loved ones, why is that? Well, there's probably an answer in your childhood, and it can benefit you to go within and release the judgment around the clinginess as somehow a character flaw, when really it might have a root somewhere from childhood, that when you didn't get your need met, right? Your need to be heard and seen and affirmed might still be in conflict. The very heart is doing the work, the Seven of Pentacles. This is also going to be what helps you come into a harmonized place. Do the work, go within, be willing. It could be something like this reading. Looking at this reading and making a point after the reading is over to do some journaling tonight about your inner child, or do an inner child meditation or something like that, right? Anytime you feel these negative, warlike, conflicted feelings in your heart, or in your in your heart, because your heart is reflected 2 times here. In your mind is an imbalance in the heart chakra with the Four of Cups. So do the work. Be willing to look at this and see what it's about. And that's a way to healthily move forward with this energy. Healthily? I don't know if that's a word. And then where the energy is headed, if you heed these messages and move forward from an informed place, is the Strength card, which is beautiful. That's a part of that's a card of overcoming these unintegrated or wounded parts of yourself. If you can face them, the Strength card is an embodiment of that. It's taming your inner lion, right? It's often shown with a woman with the beast, right? A gentle woman, like a healer, kind of reining in or bringing in this ferocious lion to love it and tame it, right? It's your dark horse. It's another image of that. And then the final message here is building blocks, which is card number 28. This is a very Aquarian reading. I feel, it's almost like I feel my dad's energy. He might be, this is, let me just say too, this is not something he would have approved of. Me leaving my career where I had just reached peak like legitimacy or whatever as a clinical social worker. I worked at VA. I was compensated for the first time in my life in a fair way. I felt adequately compensated for my work. VA is a reputable place to work as a clinical social worker. You get a lot of positive reinforcement for your clinical work because you get paid well, for one, and that's not typical as a clinical social worker. It's not a field necessarily that pays very well. I don't know why I got off on that. Oh, because of my dad. He wouldn't have approved at all of me deciding I'm going to pursue a dream of reading cards and starting my own healing business that's not a legitimate form of healing considered in Western medicine, right? Like, he would have thought I was crazy. Even though I made this decision as a 50-year-old grown-ass woman. I wasn't 50 at the time. It was couple years, like 3 years ago now. But he would have thought it was crazy. He would not have approved, and he would have stepped right into kind of dismissing this as something that wasn't good for me. I'm very creative and artistic, and in high school he kind of encouraged that side of me, but while simultaneously saying it was not really going to be something that would ever be fruitful, and I needed to really focus on learning shorthand or learning how to type. Those were like his antiquated ideas of what women could do if they had to work versus get married, right? I needed to learn secretarial skills. Even though he also wanted me to go to college. It's just like these weird conundrums, right, that I was raised with him, and I really feel his energy present. So finally, I don't mean to keep going off on that tangent, the building blocks card, card number 28. This is kind of the final message of this layout, where the energy is heading. You have everything you need to cultivate an extraordinary life. This is a time when your focus needs to be on the foundations you build upon. Your work, your relationships, and your very being are underwritten by your values, ethics, morals, and core beliefs. So you can't have a full picture of yourself without examining your shadow. We form our beliefs and our ethics and all of that through all experiences, both positive and negative. Are they still true for you? Will they stand the test of time and serve as the solid grounding upon which you construct your life? So are the way you're living currently, the beliefs you're operating from, the values, have you examined them? Will they stand the test of time? Are they true to who you are? Or are they values and beliefs that someone tried to impose on you? My dad tried to convince me that creative pursuits and pursuing things on, like, it used to be kind of considered right and left brain, right? Pursuing things with me as someone who was a little bit more right brain leaning, he just didn't value that at all. He didn't see a value in the arts. He didn't see a value in any of that kind of stuff. And so that was an unintegrated part of him. Anyways. Now you are making changes that will affect everything in a positive way. Your destiny is truly a remarkable and beautiful design. When you see this card, know that you are attracting new relationships into your life and solidifying the ones you already have by building them on the foundations of honesty, humility, clear communication, and a genuine desire to know one another, including the shadow. You are moving towards laying the groundwork for a relationship with the firm footing that will ensure it can withstand any storm. Long-standing relationships are also repaired and strengthened. You and the other person are stronger, wiser, and more powerful together than apart. Really beautiful. And that's very true of your shadow as well. You and your shadow are much stronger together than apart, or together than one side being rejected. It's very beautiful. It's a very cerebral message. I think there's only one Cups card here, and it's the Four of Cups. So it's a oh no, there's the Page of Cups too. So that inner child, right? So now let's do a point in time where actually maybe what I'll do here is, because I feel like I want to do another reading, and I think I'll separate it into another reading instead of try to do it here. But what I'll do now to wrap this layout up is ask for animal companions representing your light and dark horse. And what are their messages, and how can those messages complement what we just did? As a parting message for your light and dark shadow side of you. What are those messages in the animal kingdom from our two-legged and four-legged creatures? Well, we're the two legs, so four-legged and winged creatures. What are their energies present? What are their messages for us that can help us? Beautiful. So cool. So in our light side, our light horse or our light wolf side is cat. Guardianship, detachment, sensuality, right? That Empress card. Cats are not, it's rare for cats to be clingy. There are exceptions. I've been around clingy cats, but sensuality, mystery, magic, independence, wisdom, and vigilance. So incredible. Just, I love that energy for your conscious side. And then the energy representing your shadow, which is a classic symbol of the trickster. It's fox. Cunning, agile, quick-witted, diplomatic, wild, camouflage, shape-shifting, and invisible. So embrace those qualities within you. Embrace the conflicted Five of Swords and Four of Cups energy that showed up representing your shadow. Embrace it. Go deep. Figure out where those feelings of conflict and petulance are coming from. Somewhere in your inner child is the sense I had. And these animals can, and their energies can help you. Embrace that trickster, petulant fox within you, right? Don't try to punish it or reject it. So I think that's everything. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your ongoing support. The other thing I noticed too is that I've been reflecting a lot on this project personally, starting to be public as a card reader. I've read cards since I was a teenager, but I was very, it was just part of a personal practice that I very rarely shared with other people until about 3 years ago when I decided to be more open about it. And I was just looking at one of my first readings that I posted on Instagram, because that's where I started for a good 2 years before coming here onto YouTube. And it's like a little 5-minute card reading that doesn't even show me, and my hands are shaking and my voice is shaking because I feel very vulnerable and paranoid. I run kind of paranoid, honestly, as a person. That's part of my shadow I've had to integrate. And I was paranoid to put myself out there and expose myself to other people's judgment or hostility or ridicule or, and so that first reading compared to now, where I feel very confident, and it's almost like being on the camera opens me up and makes me feel courageous in this way that I didn't feel in the beginning. So it's another nice example of working with that until I transcended it. So I'll be back. I'm guided now to do a love reading. So I'll be back now here in a minute with a love reading. Thank you for liking and for being here, and please subscribe. And I'll see you next time.